So it was your mother you were caring for.
Yes, that's right. We moved over here to Spain,
Mm.
and she had multiple other conditions. She was 90 years old. There were some mobility issues. She was recovering from breast cancer.
Oh, yeah.
Here we were. So she developed dementia during our time here, and
Yeah.
it started off with I noticed there was something not quite right.
Mm.
So, the sort of things I noticed were, her emotional reactions weren't quite what they used to be. She would, for
Yes.
example, start snapping at me, or she
Mm.
would say something like, where's this? Where's that? You've lost this. She would start these sort of accusations as well. And
Yeah.
then after a few times of this, I thought, no, there's something not quite right here.
Yeah.
And and things really progressed from there.
Mm.
That there was that point where I went, okay, there really is something going on here.
Yeah.
And so that was the point where I started really looking into it a bit more, I suppose,
Uh-huh.
and trying to find out what could this be? Is this just old age, or is it something else?
Yes. Yes. Mm. That's interesting. And was she having any problems walking or moving? I mean, or it was the behavior was making
Yeah, you
things.
see, and I think this is probably a situation that a lot of us are in when we are looking after somebody who's elderly. My mother was 90,
Yeah.
and so there were mobility problems anyway. There were eyesight problems. And
Yes.
of course, she was recovering from breast cancer. And
Yeah.
so, there was all of this going on. And so I didn't really notice too much changing around that,
Yeah.
except she just seemed to need a bit more help. And
Yes.
so, I really the big thing for me was noticing the changes in her behavior, particularly her emotional behavior, the anger, some aggression, flying off the handle, becoming anxious. That was another one.
Yes, yes. I think that almost my own mother, she had Parkinson's. Suddenly everything became an anxiety, which is
Yeah,
so, upsetting.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And so, what caregiving is like.
Yeah.
I came to see it as really a series of quiet battles. As the condition progressed, you'd get things like, a 45-minute struggle just to get a cardigan on because we've got a doctor's appointment. So
Yeah.
you're in this massive struggle. And then suddenly, my mum would put her arms around me and just say, I love you. And then
Oh,
everything fell away. So it's almost like 90% pretty grueling, particularly, and I'm talking really about those later stages. In my mother's case, she started off in an earlier stage, but we very quickly progressed to a mid stage and then a end stage. So yeah, you'd be like, this overwhelming, physical and practical job. And the emotional exhaustion as well, and the isolation, especially I think when you're living outside of the place you've lived all your life. In our case, we
yes.
really just moved to Spain, and this started to progress within a couple of years of living here. So, it was this tremendous sense of, it's almost like being in a fight and flight situation that you sort of say, well, am I doing the right thing here? What does she need now? What can I do? What don't I understand about this? And
Yes.
then, of course, all the additional problems of being in Spain so often. But it becomes, I think, for most of us caregivers, your 24/7 job. So,
Yeah.
um,
And that you can't switch off from.
no.
Mm.
So it's almost like a dual thing. On the one hand, you're watching the person you love slip away.
Mm.
You're
Yes.
watching them lose parts of themselves. Whilst you're observing them lose parts of themselves, you're also noticing that you're losing parts of yourself too.
Yes, which is very very tough. Do you, I mean, could you explain a little more, Jenny, on what you think, losing parts of yourself?
So those parts of yourself would, are things like how you would normally, from a practical point of view, spend your time.
Mm,
In my case, I'm quite a sociable, outgoing person, being able to pop out. So, from a personal freedom perspective,
yeah,
that
yeah,
went. Um,
yes.
the other parts of self were I had been a working professional all my life
Mm,
and considered myself to be able to communicate well and, as an ex-professional coach, smooth out situations, quite diplomatic. That was a part of myself I found myself losing, quite honestly. I found
yes,
myself not being diplomatic. I found
yes,
myself just really doing all the things that you shouldn't do. I caught myself out in those moments a
yeah.
million times. And I,
Because there's no easy, I think sometimes some of our, like our coaching skills or these things in the workplace can work for one event, but it's extraordinarily different. And it's your parent.
yes, and your parents, yeah. So I did feel myself being triggered. I did feel
Yeah.
myself doing the I'm right, you're wrong thing,
Yes.
knowing not to do it and doing
Yes.
it anywhere and
Doing
going
it.
there
Yes.
anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's instant.
it's instant. It is instant. And so
Mm.
I think as well, for a caregiver, you've got the physical journey.
Yeah.
For me, I'd only ever physically looked after an animal before. I'm
Yeah.
talking a cat or a dog. I hadn't raised children. I
Yeah.
hadn't dealt with incontinence. I hadn't dealt with feeding somebody.
Yeah.
So I felt it personally, just quite overwhelming.
Yeah.
The practical side, combined with the physical toll, and then the emotional toll, and this sense of losing self as well.
Yes.
So, and at times not recognizing myself, frankly,
Yes.
not recognizing myself. And I was thinking, where is that kind, patient, supportive Jenny at this second? This
She's not
one,
available.
she's just not there at the moment. And so I think as well, you're watching this person you love slip away, they're losing parts, you're losing parts of yourself too. And that I thought was tough. And of course, your social life tends to come to a standstill as
Yes,
well.
it's on freeze, which is very hard, and particularly when you're in a new community, you've moved, and yes, yeah.
Absolutely. And so I have got a story to share as well. So one of the big challenges is
Mm.
sundowning.
Sun.
Sundowning. It's this sort of late afternoon surge of paranoia and anxiety that I think a lot of people with a loved one with dementia will recognize. It tends to kick in, latish afternoon. Nobody really
Yes.
knows why. It's simply what it is. So,
Gosh, sort of
um,
as the light fades or something.
yes,
Who
well,
knows?
I
Mm.
didn't ever really understand it because in my mum's case, she'd virtually lost her eyesight. So
Yeah.
I didn't really understand it. It's something that a lot of people go through. And
Mm.
so one time when it was a really, really bad episode of this, I could see she was very, very anxious, very, very angry. And the next thing she threw out the accusation and said, "You are keeping me here hostage." Yeah.
Ooh.
I said, how do you mean? And
Mm.
you're keeping me here hostage. Let's face it, we both know what's going on. And this was all said in a very cold, calm voice.
Mm.
We both know what's going on. You're keeping me hostage, and I'm going to have to insist that we call the police right now.
Oh,
So
Jenny.
this is going on, and so I managed to have a little quiet room in a separate room with my husband for a moment,
Mm.
and he managed to call a neighbour, a very nice neighbour, and
Yeah.
ask him to pose as the Spanish police.
Wow.
So what
Spanish.
happened then was I said, all right, Mom, you definitely want, yeah. She said, I need to report this to the police. I need to speak to the police. I said, okay. All right. So I took my phone, phoned the neighbour's number,
Yeah.
and I just said, okay, I've got Mrs. Wicks, who'd like to speak to you right now.
Mm.
And then she took the phone, and in that typical sort of showboating fashion that people with dementia can have, where
Yes.
they really step up, you would not know there's dementia going on. She spoke in a very much Queen's English and said, "Oh,
Yes.
good evening,
Rational.
Professor. Yes, you're speaking to Mrs. Wicks here. I would like to please report a very serious case." And she explained that she was being taken hostage by her daughter and son-in-law. No means of escape. This was her name, and this is her daughter's name. And yes, the daughter is the main culprit. And then she said, and then it ended with, "I would like a case number, please." And
Gosh.
then she asked me to get a pen and paper and write it down. The call ended, and she sat there. She had a case number, and she was perfectly calm and happy. And then
Wow.
asked me to, she said, "Right," she said, "let's have a cup of coffee now that we've got that done."
Gosh.
It's just, it was just like going, okay, let's enter her reality and
Yes.
do what needs to be done to keep her
Yes.
safe, calm, and happy.
Yeah. And did she ever refer to it again?
No,
No.
no. So, the dementia she had excellent long-term memory. She could record in finest details things from her childhood, things growing up,
Yes.
in minute detail. And in fact, I learned, one of the upsides was I learned a lot about family history with
Yes.
names and dates and stories and things that she wouldn't normally have told me.
Yes. Yes.
Things
Which
like one day she
which is
blurted out,
beautiful.
yeah, one day she blurted out, she said, "You could have been speaking fluent French by now." And I said, "Okay, how's that work then?" And then there came a story of a sort of a French boyfriend, lover, or something
Yes.
from her days in the army before she met
Oh.
my father.
Oh.
She gave me his name,
Oh
his place
gosh.
of birth, all
Yes.
the details. And then she said, "I wonder if we can't get in touch with him." There were fun parts.
Yes, 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 there is that feeling of just that the time concept has changed enormously and
Yes,
as if they're living in the past. And as you say, it's the recent memory. In some cases, because I think that's the difficulty, as you know, Jenny, when we're talking about dementia, we can only talk about the cases that we know because
yes,
there's such a range in terms of
yes,
symptoms and experiences and
yes.
stages.
And stages, and also this also realization that they can sort of go from one stage 1 minute really in the same day and seem perfectly okay an hour
Yes,
later. As I
yes,
say, when my mother had her case number and everything was fine again. And she could
wonderful.
appear extremely rational and also
Yes.
process things, also to the point where when I was feeling stressed and overwhelmed, she
Mm.
would say, "You the one, is it me? Am I the one losing it, or is it actually you, Jenny?"
Mind games.
And then it was like, you know what I mean? I would I know, make her coffee in the wrong way or something like that. And she'd say,
Yes,
"Oh, no, no, no." She said, look, I just watched you do it." And I thought, hang on a minute, I didn't think her eyesight was very good. And she is on the dementia. And so
yes,
she said, "I think you're losing it a bit, aren't you?" So we had this going on. It was quite funny at times.
yes, 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 yes. And it's beautiful that you can, hang on to some of
Yes.
those moments. I mean,
Absolutely. And
and
I think as
mm,
well, for me, what kept me going on
mm,
those really difficult days, and there were those very, very
yes,
difficult days where it was just like, so much, and you're sort of overwhelmed with the practical, the emotional, the physical, and
yeah,
then getting all of these accusations and the paranoia and the crying and
yeah,
you've got all of this going on at once, and then you're feeling lonely, a little bit sorry for yourself. So what I did to keep me going was every single day at the end of every what wins can I celebrate today?
nice, yeah, yes,
Yeah, focused on what went well.
mm,
They could be, I call them micro wins. That could
hmm,
be something like, well, we ended the day with her feeling safe and happy
yeah,
and listening to her music, and we danced today. And Mum managed to eat, and we managed to tell each other we loved each other
Yeah.
and all of these things. And I also realized as well at the back of my mind, what also kept me going was this sense of I am her safe space. And this is, of course, very much so with people with dementia, that they almost like sort of latch onto somebody, you become their safe space because they can't
Yes.
make sense of the world. And
Yes.
so you become their safe space. And so
Mm.
I would remind myself, I am her safe space. And I'm also the keeper of her dignity.
Yes.
So I held on to her standards, you
Yeah.
know, that she couldn't anymore. I mean, she was a lady that never would have exited her bedroom suite without being in hair and makeup.
Yeah. Yes.
I was looking rough around the edges, but, mother was in her, sort of jewelry, hair,
Twinset and pearls.
makeup, immaculate. But, if we went to medical appointments, I was looking quite ragged and,
Well, you
mother
had no time.
perfect, beautifully presented in her lipstick and her hair coiffed and everything. So
Done by you.
yeah, done by me. Yes,
Your
yeah,
hair and
yeah,
makeup.
yeah. All in hair and makeup. We did hair and makeup every single day. Hair,
Yeah.
makeup, perfume, coiffed, and in all her matching outfits. So she was
Yes.
always beautifully turned out,
Yes.
and that I did feel it important to be the keeper of her standards.
Yes. And it mattered to her. And I imagine
Yeah.
whether she expressed it or not, she was enormously grateful for that.
Yes, she was, absolutely. And it was also important to keep a routine and
Yes.
to try and keep certain things as they always were. I felt that was very, very important as well.
Yes. Yes.
So there's a few things I wish people knew a bit more, and I wish I'd
Mm.
known more. And we learn and grow from these experiences. Is
Yes.
that however bad it is at that moment, the person is still there.
Mm.
You know,
They're
people are
still,
not
it's
there.
still your mother.
Yeah,
What was her
she's still
name?
there. People are not their behavior. Their dementia is a physical brain disease. So
Yes.
when they say something painful and hurtful, it's the disease talking, not the person.
Yeah. Which is really quite hard to do, isn't it? When,
Oh, it is.
because it's your loved one and words, there's a lot of impact and meaning in those words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of energy and also there's history when it's a loved
Yes.
one. So it triggers memories as well of feeling judged or criticized and takes you back to your own wounds. We've
Yes.
all got them.
Yes, indeed.
So,
Indeed.
it also demands that you look at that and just step up and go, okay, what's this really about? So I think as well, it can't be emphasized enough that the person is not their behavior and they are still there as well. And if I had any advice to give to anybody, and it was the advice I had to keep giving myself and, failing a million times, is don't argue, go with
Yes.
the flow, get
Yes.
into their world. They can't join you in theirs because they've got a brain, pathology. So they can't join you in your world. You
Mm.
have to join them in their world. And so that helped me anyway, sort of replace frustration with, the compassion that they actually deserve.
Yes, that's a beautiful way of putting it, Jenny, because as you say, you have to adapt because they're not in a position where they can adapt.
Yeah,
And we expect that, I think, of in other relationships, that the sort of adjustment or the two-way, but it isn't two-way. It's
they can't.
mm,
If they
mm,
could, they would, and they
yes,
absolutely can't. And the other thing I would say is, get as much information as possible, get informed and reach out. So, for example, one of the things I didn't know was realize that at a certain point that eating became difficult.
yes,
I didn't at that time though realize that swallowing involves the brain.
yeah. Gosh, no, I didn't know that.
So the thing that we can all do without our bodies work unconsciously. The brain communicates with that part of the swallowing function that separates the food from the air. That is a brain function, apparently. It knows
Yes.
how to separate. So when you eat, it says, okay, the food goes here and and it doesn't go into the lungs. But when you've got late stage dementia, it's called dysphagia. And so what happens is that the brain can't do that anymore. And so what happens is the person is, you're trying to get them to eat, and then they're sitting there sort of choking on your food. And I found myself saying to my mom, just sit up and swallow,
Yes,
but
yes. Take it calmly.
that's it's the brain.
Mm,
It requires a part of the brain that is no longer working properly. In the same way that incontinence goes hand in hand with dementia, late stage dementia, because again, that is something that cannot be regulated. It's not a physical thing about, bladder or whatever. It's a brain activity as well. So you're dealing with all these issues, and it's
yeah.
to understand them and to
Mm,
understand the person is perhaps doing the best they can with what they've got. And this brain disease means that they really can't do these things, or they're struggling to do these things. So, when you're dealing with the person, your loved one, not really being able to eat as they could and get the nutrients in that their bodies needs, and you've got the incontinence going on, and you've got mobility issues going on, and then you've got these constant infections. The last year of life, you're dealing with a lot of infections as well.
yeah.
It's this also sense of, I don't know what to do. I had lots of moments where I thought, I don't know what to do. My mum had so many UTI infections, which is very
Mm,
common at stage dementia, that I
yeah.
had my own UTI testing kit at home. Then you're testing, so how do you test urine of somebody who's incontinent?
Yeah. Very.
So I thought, okay, well, I'm just doing what I can do here.
Yeah.
And then I had my own testing kit um, because you're also navigating a healthcare system. And then I'd phone 112 because I knew that a UTI can very quickly escalate. Infections
Yes.
tend to escalate with dementia. And so I'd phone 112 and say, look, I've got my own testing kit at home. This is what it's reading. This is my mother's,
Yeah.
name, healthcare number, whatever like that. And they were actually really good. So
Oh, excellent.
yeah,
Oh,
they
yeah.
trusted my judgment. I said, these two things are elevated. So, oh yes, they said, that's definitely a sign. So we will
Yes.
immediately get medication, immediately give you a prescription, whatever like that. So
Yes.
that was good. And I must say, there's a couple of things about being in Spain. I know a lot of people living in Spain have a lot of problems here. And look, I found it difficult because when we moved out, I mean, I couldn't speak Spanish.
Yeah.
Mother was in a state healthcare system and so on. So
Yeah.
it was very difficult. There are a few things though. The one is that in a Spanish healthcare system, you are allowed to be with your loved one all the time. And remember, when you are their safe space, that brings
Yes.
a lot of comfort.
Yes. No, that's huge. And as we were saying at the beginning, that was one of the awful things about the whole pandemic, that was so isolating. But yes, no,
Yes.
that's a real positive about being in Spain.
Massive thing
Mm,
because of course my mother would refuse point blank to go to hospital. Sometimes she didn't know what country she was in. She thought we were still in South Africa, and she would say, I'm not going to hospital unless you can come with me. I said, no, I'll be with you. And so that
yes.
made a big difference that we didn't have that obstacle. I could literally be with her 24/7 because typically that last year in a dementia journey is in and out of hospital, in and out with infections, that a lot of things are happening. So it's a great thing that here in Spain they understand and accept that you can be with them 24/7 as a caregiver in hospital.
Yes, 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 yes. That, as you say, that's huge and something that we need to promote really, or need to make people realize actually You know, what a
Yes.
huge plus
And
that is.
and even when you've got things like they're taken away for tests, and normally in a Spanish hospital it would be okay. We understand that you're staying in the room with them the whole time. That's great, but now
Yes,
we're going off for this or that test.
yes,
Well, certainly in the comunidad that we're in here in Valencia, had on her health card, SIP card, they call it here, A written, which stands for, I don't know, attendance with Alzheimer, that I could be with her even in those situations. That if they said, "Oh no, we have to take her off for a scan or this or that," the other, my
yes.
mother would be saying, "I don't want to be separated from my daughter," and then I'd show them that card. Oh, they'd say, "Okay, come with us," and so that was
Wow.
also extremely helpful.
Yes, yes, yes. For both of you, really.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. It meant that, and also for, I think, the healthcare providers, that they could keep things under control as well, that
Yes.
she wasn't, refusing.
Yes. Starting to panic or yes.
Yeah. So
Mm.
I think in all of this as well, there is learning as well. You
Mm.
learn about yourself.
Mm.
You dig deep physically and emotionally, particularly. You learn. I think it's a journey of incredible insight into not only what this disease is and what this person is experiencing, but you also gain insights into yourself as well. And at
Yes.
the end of it, I can only say, my mother died in my arms at home,
Mm.
and I can only say, when it was all over, um, I could look back and say, I'm so happy I could give her this gift,
Yeah.
and I'm so happy I could give this gift to myself as well.
Yes. Yes.
But
Would
I
you?
must say, it's not for everybody. I was fortunate in that
Yeah.
I have a phenomenal husband,
Yeah.
one of these, you know, very practical men as well.
Yeah.
And so when I needed a moment,
When you
um,
needed a break. Mm.
yeah, he would take over.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that was a blessing. I also had a fantastic, couple of friends here.
Yeah.
And, they would say, let us step in for an evening that you can go out when mother
Yeah.
was in bed. So I make sure mum was in bed and everything, and
Yeah.
then go out, and then
Yeah.
they would be here, so, that was that really, really helps well. So, and I think as well, as caregivers, tend to isolate ourselves and just, you know,
Yes.
we
Prioritize.
and
Mm.
we forget there are people out there. I
Yeah.
mean,
Who can help?
yes, and
Yes.
so there are more people than you think. And at a certain point, I phoned Age in Spain. That's how I got involved with Age in Spain.
Oh,
I
right.
phoned,
Yes.
is there help out there? How does it work? And that was great. I made that phone call. That was how I got involved with Age in Spain. Actually,
Oh,
they helped
great.
me, and then when this journey was over,
Yes.
I offered my services as a volunteer there. So, and then I found as well that, yeah, a couple of friends would help. My husband was always there to help. Somewhere in that process, my sister-in-law and husband moved over, and they would say, "Look, we'll say." I said, "Oh no,
We're
but
here.
you won't know what to do." And my sister-in-law would say, "Jenny, I've raised three children single-handedly. I know what to do, okay?
Yeah.
I know your
Yeah.
mother, I know what to do." And I looked after, my own mother towards the end of her
Yeah.
dementia. And I know what to do. You go out. And
Yes.
so I
Yes.
did find myself not asking enough for help. And then when people would be offering, I'd say, "Oh yes," and I thought, why didn't I do this earlier?" So that's also perhaps a tip for other people out there.
That's
Ask
a really
for help.
good tip, Jenny, to sort of to try, and you're not necessarily, you can't schedule it, but try and make sure that you have some time, some breaks. Mm, yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So I think for all those carers out there, it's a hero's journey. You may not see it
Yes.
at the time. It's a hero's journey,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's one that you can be proud of yourself of for stepping up if you're in that situation.
Oh, indeed, indeed. I think in terms of, just the depth of your humanity, Jenny, and, you know, what you value and what are things that really matter in life. So much
Yeah.
sort of falls away, doesn't it, when you're
Yeah, it
caring for
does.
somebody?
Yeah. I
Mm.
think as well, you know, and feeling as though you're failing is part of that journey in a big way as well. So,
Yes.
you know, there is this sense of not getting it right. I'm failing. I haven't got this. I can't do this. You know, you're confronted very much with that. And it is to try and look for the wins as well. Look
Yes.
at the fact that you're there, your
Mm.
presence means everything.